Coming up, we hear about this year's American Indian Film Festival and meet one of its filmmakers. And we get a preview of a new novel from an Ojibway author that is hitting bookstores this week. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The ICT Newscast is sponsored by the Indian Land Tenure Foundation, a nonprofit organization serving American Indian nations and people in the recovery and control of their rightful homelands. On the web at iltf.org.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Amadawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. The U.S. infant mortality rate rose 3% last year, the largest increase in 2 decades. A new report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shows significant death rate increases for white and Native American infants, infant boys, and babies born at 37 weeks or earlier. U.S. infant deaths surpassed 20,500 in 2022. That's 610 higher than in 2021. The national average climbed from 5.44 to 5.6 deaths for every 1,000 live births. For American Indian and Alaska Natives, the increase was even higher, from 7.46 to 9.06 infant deaths for every 1,000 live births in 2022. The report did not try to answer whether the data is a one-year statistical blip or the beginning of a trend. We go now to Hawaii, where activists and environmentalists have won a battle against the U.S. military. The military has been draining a leaky jet fuel storage facility for years, creating risks to a critical water source on Oahu. In November 2021, about 93,000 people were exposed to contaminated water as 17,000 gallons leaked from the facility, and at least 3,300 gallons contaminated the Navy's drinking water system. About 2,000 people got sick and over a dozen were hospitalized, with some of the children being sick for up to a month. Last month, 5 Navy admirals received official rebukes for their mishandling of the crisis. The extent of the spill and the mishandling of the situation gave rise for calls to empty the tanks. The process is now underway and will take 3 months for all of the fuel to be sent down 3 miles of pipeline to Pearl Harbor, where it will be loaded onto tankers and sent elsewhere. Moving to Nebraska, a new but much-needed hire is hoping to tackle the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous people in the state. Oglala Lakota citizen Grace Johnson has been hired as the liaison for MMIP for the state's Attorney General's office. She will coordinate with the local, state, and federal agencies to report and investigate cases. Previously, she worked with both the Great Plains Tribal Leaders Health Board and the Nebraska Indian Child Welfare Coalition Board. According to a 2020 report with the Nebraska State Patrol, a majority of missing Native Americans in the state are males under the age of 17 years old. The position is funded by the Nebraska State Legislature. Moving to New Mexico, there has been a new development in that state's approach to MMIP. The Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Relatives Task Force was ended by Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's administration in a quiet fashion. The task force has not met since May. This comes after multiple members publicly opposed the nomination of former San Ildefonso Pueblo Governor James Mountain to be the head of the Indian Affairs Department, which the task force is a part of. Mountain was accused of rape in 2007. He was indicted the following year on charges of kidnapping and aggravated battery. The case was dismissed in 2010 after prosecutors said they did not have sufficient evidence for him to stand trial. The governor's press secretary, Caroline Sweeney, did not answer a question about whether the task force members' opposition to Mountain was a factor in ending the task force. Instead, Sweeney told New Mexico In Depth that the task force already achieved its objectives. Well, a seasonal display is highlighting a social dance for all to see. The gorgeous display contains 100 carved pumpkins that highlight the Haudenosaunee smoke dance. The pumpkins are part of the Pumpkin Fairno exhibit in Upper Canada Village, Ontario. The social dance focuses on fast footwork, artistic flair, and athleticism. The pumpkins were created in collaboration with the Akwesasne Mohawk community to better connect the two neighbors. This is the second year that Pumpkin Furno has worked with the community, with last year's event featuring carvings of the legendary Deer Lady. The event also had Native North American Travelings College for a display themed around legends of our land. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. This year is the 48th Annual American Indian Film Festival. ICT's Paris Wise got the schedule of events from its executive director and an exclusive interview with one of the filmmakers up for awards. Take a look.
I am the executive director of the American Indian Film Festival, and we have been around since 1975. We started in Seattle, Washington. The festival was actually started by my father, Michael Smith, who passed in 2018. But, I've been working along with him since I was born. I was born into the film festival, and learned from him, watched, how he, presented the festival to the community. The festival's always been community-based, and he moved the festival from Seattle to San Francisco in 1977, and we've been showcasing programs every year since then, and so we are now on our 48th festival season, so we're really excited.
This year, there are nearly 60 films, shorts, music videos, docs up for awards as well. Can you give us a little overview of some of these projects people will see and some of the creatives behind them?
From the 3rd through the 8th, we are showcasing films at 2 venues, one is at the DeYoung Museum in Golden Gate Park, and then also at the San Francisco Public Library. And all the films, a bulk of the films that are presented at the public library are all free to the community. And so we welcome everybody to come out. That's a total of 15 programs, free programs. And some programs have up to about 8 films in them. And a lot of the films that are going to be shown throughout are nominated for our awards, which is features, documentaries, music video, animation, and so we have some incredible films this year. Bones of Crows by Marie Clement, Rosie by Gail Marie, and but one of the filmmakers that we have is Jack Kohler and Katie Dorr's film Gift of Fear.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because Jack Kohler is here to join us. Hi, Jack. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Tell us about your film, The Gift of Fear.
Well, Gift of Fear is a narrative feature. It deals with the missing and murdered Indigenous women's issue. And we started doing a documentary, and we realized the only way to reach a mass group of people, especially non-natives, was to make a narrative feature, something that was entertaining, but still got the point across about this issue that a lot of people don't know about. And so it's about a young Native girl, Millie, who's a foster youth, whose mother was a missing and murdered Indigenous woman. And so she's growing up and she's looking for identity, a place to belong. And unfortunately, she's leaning towards the gang life because she wants a family, and her social worker pulls her out of the gang life. But then that's where the conflict comes in, and she gets one of her good friends gets kidnapped and is being forced into the human trafficking area, which is quite often happens with a lot of young Native girls and also foster youth. So we deal with that issue, and then we're trying to represent the MMU, which is the Missing and Murdered Unit, which was created by Deb Haaland, our Secretary of the Interior. And we're trying to put it out there as something that's actually going out and doing something positive about this issue, this crisis that's been going on since Pocahontas. Pocahontas was probably one of the first documented MMIW cases in America, but that the whole Pocahontas theme has been romanticized and sort of whitewashed. And so we're trying to give another perspective through a narrative film. I've had lots of films in the American Indian Film Festival. In fact, my very first documentary won the Best Documentary Award, which was River Renewal. And from there, I started creating more and more, and it was a good catalyst, that film, and that was back in 2008. And so, filmmaking is a good outlet, and a good way for Native Americans to tell their story, their history, which oftentimes is not presented properly. And Hollywood hasn't done a very good job in the past of representing Native American history, life, crises. And so I think as Native American filmmakers, that's what we need to do. We need to tell the true story of what happened.
Since you're returning to this festival, what does being a part of it this year mean to you?
Well, we always look forward to the festival every year. And I miss Michael Smith a lot, seeing him at the festival and being there. And it's always good to see all the new talent coming out and representing Native Americans all over the country, and seeing old friends and being with good friends like Mattia.
Mattia, can you tell us more about what will be happening over the course of the 9 days, in addition to the awards and the screenings of these films?
Actually, on the evening of the 9th, we are going to be presenting our fireside chat. And we're super excited about that. It's going to be held at Berkeley City College in Berkeley. And they have been wonderful in welcoming us and wanting to host the event there. The event is going to take place starting at 6:30, and it's going to start with a reception. We're going to have a little Indian market, and then a little later on in the evening, we're going to have an hour-long sit-down with Janice Schminding. She's the actress from Reservation Dogs and Rutherford Falls, and it will be hosted by local East Bay comedian Jackie Kali'ia'a, who is with Good Medicine Comedy. That will be followed by a funders panel, which will take place in San Francisco at the Magic Theater the following day. And we have participation by an ITVS member from San Francisco, Vision Maker Media representative, and also BAVAC representative in San Francisco. And so these three individuals are going to talk about funding opportunities within their collective organizations. And they all have connections, in broadcasting. And so this is a really good opportunity for filmmakers, emerging filmmakers, producers, just to come and listen and learn about the opportunities in television broadcast. That evening, we are excited about another project that we're hosting. It is the premiere of Marvel's new series called Echo. And, it's one of Marvel's newest superhero series that follows a heroine named Maya Lopez from the Choctaw Nation. And the next day, we finalize our festival with our annual awards show, and that will take place Saturday, November 11th at the California Academy of Science, and it begins at 6:30. So there are a couple level of tickets if you want to come and experience the whole night, or just come for the award show. You have that option. But it should be a good night. We have two comedians hosting the award ceremony. We are bringing back a Jackie Kali'ia'a, and then also a comedian from Los Angeles. His name is Tyler Clare. The 48th Annual American Indian Film Festival will take place November 3rd to the 11th in San Francisco. If you'd like to check us out, please visit our website at aifisf.com, and we'll see you there.
Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A new novel from an Ojibwe author is hitting bookstores this week. A Song Over Misqua Rapids is from Bois Fort citizen Linda Lagarde Grover. ICT's Shirley Snavy interviewed her recently.
It's my fourth fiction book, and they center around a fictional reservation and band in northern Minnesota. It's fictional, but it's very much like the lands that my family's from, Bois Fort and also Grand Portage and Fond du Lac. So it's like that, but it's fiction.
Sure it is. I mean, you must have modeled the characters on some folks, or stories you heard.
David Troyer has a book that I admire. It's a novel called Prudence. And so somebody was asking him too, because it's set in Walker, Minnesota. And so they're saying, what part here is really happened and stuff. And he said, I made it all up.
Birds have a lot of symbolism in all Native cultures, right? And for you guys, Migizi is one of those, but the robin seems to be the messenger in your book. Tell me about the robin.
The robin takes care of stories, of old stories, and so communicates them to to other robins, and that is their sacred trust here. And so they keep the stories. They care for them, they observe what's going on, and so that adds to the story, and then it passes on to another generation. And so they're kind of they're not as noticeable, I guess, a bird, but they do know the stories. And the female robins, actually, I read quite a bit about older women in this book, and female robins, as it is everywhere in the bird and animal world, are not as colorful and splashy as the males. At the same time, they are the underpinnings of existence here, and just as female humans are.
There's a lot of humor in the book, and the interplay between those who are in this world and those who have passed on, I think, is just a delightful read. I don't want to give too much away, but the way the aunties come together with their lawn chairs, I think, is just charming.
Well, my aunt, and she's in the next world herself now, and has been for quite a while, but she used to talk in that way. And so I enjoyed having those ladies come to the book here. And I remember she used to say that on the fourth day, after someone dies, the spirit arrives in the next destination. But she said, yet at the same time, they are still among us all the time. So it's just, it's a leap of faith, and something that I think is a pretty easy leap for Native people in the way that we see the world and have the world shown to us. And so I had her in mind when the ladies made their appearance here in this book. But to me, the story, the land itself is not just the backdrop, but actually the large entity in the story is the people in northeastern Minnesota living on that land, and great changes taking place in their community. And yet the terrain, though we may change the terrain, and there's something in my newest book about changes to the terrain and human made inroads on things that you just go, well, is that really a good thing? But at the same time, I think that the land itself, the terrain around us, I mean, not just the earth, I mean, the water, everything is so much larger and more powerful than we are, and have as what breathes life into them is the creator, great spirit. And so we are really kind of frail and futile as we do things. Just the same, this is what we have now. We have our, and I think we're fortunate, that that we still have reservation lands. I mean, those of us who were not obliterated, we are thankful for this every day. And at the same time, I think that traditionally we have felt, just as the robin is about the stories, our task has been to appreciate and to care for what we have been given, which is the Mother Earth that we walk upon. And so that's a big part of this story. And in all my books, then what is happening up there? And a treaty happened. In earlier books, people had to relocate to move there, and then the characters in the books experience the things that all of us have. I mean, the boarding school, the education policies, the termination policies of the 50s through the late 80s, all the programs associated with these things, and then of course the larger degree of tribal sovereignty and self-determination, and I want to show that it's not a perfect world, and we are not perfect beings in it either. We still must deal with things in the contemporary world, and it can be a struggle sometimes. How do we maintain what we really have been taught is our duty to continue in a world that changes so much.
Linda Lagarde Grover's new book, A Song Over Misquah Rapids, is out on November 7th. Well, a group of Native Hawaiians are working together to save a species of a tree that holds deep cultural significance to the island's history. ICT's Demi Dupavion has this story.
Teams rushed to keep a famous banyan tree alive in the heart of Lahaina. It has been a tourist landmark and a symbol for outsiders. But there is another story, one that peels away a layer of colonialism. A small group of arborists, farmers, and landscapers argue that the attention given to the banyan tree was misplaced.
Seeing the banyan tree lifted up, which is a symbol of colonialism, was planted by an individual who was a key figure in the overthrow of the Hawaiian kingdom, is a symbol of, tourism and kind of Hawaii as America's playground. Is a symbol of a lot of the things, the mistakes, I guess, that we're hoping are not repeated.
The fire also nearly wiped out another set of trees, ones that sustained Polynesian voyagers about 1,000 years ago. As Maui recovers from the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century, some Hawaiian natives have made it their mission to save these trees.
As our ancestors spread out across the islands, they were cloning these trees and moving them around. They're sterile, so you can't grow them from seed. So every pre-European ulu tree in Hawaii is believed to be a clone of itself. These trees are not necessarily genetically unique, but they are unique in the sense that they hold the stories of that place.
Deep in the roots of badly burned specimens is live tissue that can be used to clone new ulu trees. Researchers believe they were carried across the ocean by Polynesian voyagers before arriving on the island. Ulu trees can grow to 60 feet tall and produce hundreds of pounds of breadfruit, typically eaten cooked with a starchy taste.
The work that we're trying to do is first and foremost to ensure that those historical trees live on, and their genealogy lives on throughout the historical footprint of Lahaina.
That was ethnobotanist Hokuau Pellegrino, who has breadfruit trees on his farm in Waikapu. He believes reintegrating breadfruit into the terrain could reclaim the identity of the town and feed it too.
Yeah, it's so tasty. A little bit of paprika, Hawaiian salt. Oh, it's the best.
As plant life is found through the roots, samples are collected and sent to a lab at the University of Hawaii in Hilo. Lincoln projects hundreds of new trees could grow from seeds or saplings.
And so when a disaster like this happens and, potentially wipes out the last remaining trees that date back to pre-contact times, that are a reminder that, the Lahaina of today and the Lahaina of the past 100 years is not the Lahaina that was always there. It was quite different in the past, and that's really important to remember because it reminds us that it can be different in the future as well.
The groups saving these ulu trees are restoring Hawaiian values. They hold the history of Lahaina's past and hope for its future. Reporting for ICT News, I'm Demi Jupavian.
Volunteers are trucking in water, applying compost extract, and testing the soil to revive the trees. And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.